16. Buying a house is the worst investment most people will ever make. I said it. And before you call me crazy, let me show you the math. The average American homeowner who buys a $400,000 house with a 20% down payment and a 7% mortgage will pay over $550,000 in interest alone over 30 years. Add property taxes, maintenance, insurance, and closing costs, and that $400,000 house cost nearly $1 million. And after 3 decades, what do you have? A house that might be worth $800. Zoo, if you're lucky, you just lost $200,000. Meanwhile, the renter who invested that down payment and monthly savings in the stock market could be a millionaire. If you stay until the end of this video, you'll learn the true cost of homeownership, the hidden expenses that real estate agents never mention, the opportunity cost of tying up your money in a single illiquid asset, and the 5 scenarios where renting is actually the smarter financial move. I'm not saying never buy a house. I'm saying buy with your eyes wide open, not because society tells you it's the American dream. My name is your name, and today we're debunking the biggest financial myth of all time. Let me start with a story. My friend Mark bought his first house at age 28. He was proud. He posted the keys on Instagram. Everyone congratulated him. He put $40,000 down, his entire savings, on a $400,000 house with a 7% mortgage. His monthly payment was $2,500 including taxes and insurance. He thought he was building equity. 5 years later, he needed a new roof, $15,000. Then the water heater died, tip $200. Then the HVAC system failed, $8,000. Then property taxes went up 20%. Then he got a job offer in another city and had to sell. After realtor commissions of 6%, 24, zero, and closing costs, he walked away with $30,000, less than his down payment. He had lost $10,000 over 5 years, not counting the interest he paid. Renting a similar house would have cost him $2,000 a month. He would have saved $500 a month, invested that money, and ended up with over $35,000 after 5 years. He told me, "I bought the dream, but I got a nightmare." Now, I'm not saying every home purchase is a mistake. In some markets, in some time periods, buying beats renting. But the relentless cultural pressure to buy, from parents, from friends, from every TV show, is based on outdated assumptions. Let me break down the true cost that no one talks about. Cost number 1, mortgage interest, the silent wealth killer. At a 7% interest rate on a $320,000 mortgage after 20% down, you will pay approximately $446,000 in interest over 30 years. That's more than the original loan amount. In the first, over 80% of your payment goes to interest, not principal. So when you sell after 5 years, you've barely paid down the loan. You've essentially rented the money from the bank at a terrible rate. Even at a 4% rate, you'd pay $230,000 in interest. That's still a massive drag on your net worth. The only way to avoid this is to pay cash or make huge extra principal payments, which most people can't afford. Cost number 2, property taxes, the never-ending rental payment to the government. Property taxes average about 1.1% of the home's value nationally, but in high-tax states like Texas, New Jersey, and Illinois, it can be 2% or more. On a $400,000 house, that's $4,400 to $8,000 per year. Over 30 years, that's $132,000 to $240,000. And unlike mortgage interest, property taxes never go away. Even after you pay off the mortgage, you still owe property taxes until you die or sell. That's a permanent rent. Cost number 3, maintenance and repairs, the 1% rule. Oster's financial experts recommend budgeting 1% to 2% of the home's value annually for maintenance. On a $400,000 house, that's $4,000 to $8,000 per year. Over 30 years, that's $120,000 to $240,000. And that's just routine stuff: painting, landscaping, appliance repairs. Major items like a new roof, $15,000, HVAC, $8,000, or foundation repair, $10,000, come on top. Many homeowners underestimate these costs because they don't happen every year, but they will happen, and they're not optional. A leaking roof destroys your home's value. Cost number 4, homeowners insurance required but rising. Asterisk, insurance costs have been skyrocketing due to climate change and inflation. In Florida and California, many insurers have stopped writing new policies. The average annual premium is about $2,200 to $2,000. Over 30 years, that's $36,000 to $60,000. And if you live in a flood or fire zone, you need separate policies. That's more money. Cost number 5, closing costs and realtor commissions. The front and back end hits. Asterisk, when you buy, closing costs, title search, appraisal, origination fees, etc. run about 2% to 5% of the purchase price. On a $400,000 house, that's $8,000 to $20,000. When you sell, realtor commissions are typically 5% to 6%. That's $20,000 to $24,000. Plus seller concessions, transfer taxes, and more. So the round-trip transaction costs can be $30,000 to $50,000. That's money that does nothing for you except facilitate the trade. Asterisk, cost number 6, HOA fees, the hidden monthly tax. If you buy a condo or a house in a planned community, you'll pay HOA fees. These can range from $100 to $1,000 per month. They pay for amenities, landscaping, and sometimes utilities, but they also go up every year. Over 30 years, even a $200 monthly HOA fee costs $72,000, and you have no control over the increases. HOA boards can special assess you thousands for a new roof or pool repair. You have to pay or face a lien on your home. Opportunity cost, the biggest cost of all. This is the one almost everyone ignores. The money you put into your down payment and monthly housing costs could have been invested in the stock market. The historical average return of the S&P 500 is about 10% before inflation. Let's do the math. You put $80,000 down on a $400,000 house. Instead, you invest that 80 zeros in a low-cost index fund. You also save $1,000 per month compared to your mortgage payment, since renting would be cheaper. You invest that too. After 30 years at 7% real return, you would have over $1.8 million. That's your net worth from renting and investing. The homeowner, on the other hand, has a paid-off house worth maybe $800,000 after inflation. But they've also paid hundreds of thousands in interest, taxes, insurance, and maintenance. Their net worth is lower. The renter-investor is a millionaire. The homeowner is house rich, but cash poor. This is the math that real estate agents don't want you to see. Now, let me give you a real comparison using actual numbers for 2026. Scenario A, buy a $400,000 house with 20% down, 30-year fixed mortgage at 7%. Monthly payment, principal plus interest, $2,129. Add property taxes, $333. Insurance, $125. 30 month. Maintenance, $333 per month. Over $2,920 cash outlay, $80,000 down plus $2,920, $360, $80,000 plus $1,131,002. At the end, you own a house. Let's assume the house appreciates at 3% per year, historical average after inflation. That $400,000 house becomes about $970,000. So your net gain, $970, $1,131,200, $161,200. You lost money. Wait, but you also had imputed rent. You lived there, so you need to compare to what you would have paid in rent. Let's say you would have rented a similar house for $2,000 per month. Over 30 years, that's $720,000. But you paid $1,131,200 in housing costs. So your excess cost is $411,200. But you own an asset worth $970,000, so your net benefit is $970,411, $58,800 over 30 years. That's about $18,600 per year. Not bad. But wait, we haven't accounted for the opportunity cost of the down payment. If you had invested that $80,000 and the $920 monthly savings, since rent was $2,000 versus your $2, $920 payment, you would have $80,000 invested plus $920 per month. At 7% annual return after 30 years, that's $1.8 million, as I said. Subtract the $720,000 you paid in rent, and you have $1.08 million net. That's much higher than the homeowner's net of $558,800. Renting and investing beats buying by over $500,000 in this scenario, and that's with reasonable assumptions. Now, let me run the same numbers with a 5% mortgage rate. Mortgage payment drops to $1,718 per month. Total monthly with taxes, insurance, maintenance $2,509. Monthly savings versus renting $2,509, $2,509. Invest that plus the $80,000 down payment, $80,000 plus $509, about $1.1 million. Subtract rent of $720,000, $380,000 homeowner net, house value and $70,000 minus total payments, $80,000, $2,936, $80,000 plus $903,040, $920,000 net, $240, $13,200 plus imputed rent value. But we already accounted by comparing to renting. Actually, let's do it cleanly. Homeowner's total cost minus house value, $983,200, $970. Zuzer, $13,204. That's a loss. Renter's total cost minus investment value, $720,000, $100,000, $380,000. So the renter comes out ahead by $366,760. The lower the mortgage rate, the closer it gets, but buying still loses in this example because of the high transaction costs and carrying costs. The only time buying wins is if you stay for 30+ years, have very low interest rate, like 2-3 mirror, and have high rent inflation. But in 2026, with 7% rates, the math strongly favors renting. But wait, what about home equity? Don't you build equity? Yes, you build equity. But that equity is tied up in an illiquid asset. You can't spend it without selling or taking out a loan. And the rate at which you build equity is slow. In the first 5 years of a 7% mortgage, you pay down only about 5% of the principal. Most of your payment is interest. So if you sell at 5 years, you might have only $20,000 in equity from principal reduction plus any appreciation, but you also paid $60,000 in interest. It's a bad deal. Asterisk, what about tax deductions? Mortgage interest is tax deductible. This used to be a big deal, but the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 raised the standard deduction to $12, zeros and for singles, and $24,000 for couples. Most people don't have enough itemized deductions to exceed the standard deduction. In 2026, the standard deduction is even higher. So unless you have a huge mortgage and a lot of other itemized deductions, you won't see any tax benefit. Don't count on it. Now, let me give you 5 scenarios where renting is smarter than buying. Scenario 1. You plan to move within 5 years. Transaction costs, closing costs, realtor commissions will wipe out any equity you build. Rent and invest the difference. You'll come out ahead. Scenario 2, you live in a high-cost city like San Francisco, New York, or Vancouver. The price-to-rent ratio is extreme. It's often cheaper to rent than to pay a mortgage on a $1 million condo. Run the numbers. Use the New York Times rent versus buy calculator. It's free. Scenario 3, you don't have a 20% down payment. If you put less than 20% down, you'll pay private mortgage insurance, PMI, which can be $100, $300 per month. That's pure waste. Plus, you'll have a higher loan amount and more interest. Wait until you have 20% saved. Or keep renting. Scenario 4, you value flexibility and freedom. Homeownership ties you down. If you get a great job offer in another city, you have to sell or rent out your house. Selling is expensive. Being a landlord is a hassle. Renting gives you the freedom to move with 2 months' notice. Scenario 5, you're not handy and don't want to deal with maintenance. When you rent, the landlord fixes the leaky faucet, the broken dishwasher, the dead tree. When you own, it's all on you. If you value your weekends and hate home repair shows, renting is a lifestyle win. Now, when does buying make sense? Asterisk, buying can be a good financial decision if you plan to stay for 7 to 10 years or more, you have a low mortgage rate, ideally below 5 MAR. You buy in a market with strong job growth and limited supply, and you are disciplined enough to invest the money you would have spent on rent. Also, if you have a family and want stability, schools, and the ability to customize your home, that's a lifestyle choice, not a financial one. It's okay to spend money on happiness. But don't pretend it's a great investment. Let me give you a story where buying actually worked. A couple I know bought a house in Austin, Texas in 2012 for $250,000. They put 20% down. Their interest rate was 3.5%. They stayed for 12 years. The house appreciated to $600,000. They paid about $100,000 in interest, $50,000 in property taxes, $30,000 in maintenance, and $15,000 in insurance. Total costs: $80,000 down plus $1,000 interest, taxes, $275,000 plus the remaining principal they paid down. They sold for $600,000, paid $36,000 in commissions, netted $564,000. Their gain was $564,000, $275,000, $89,000. That's a good return, about 9% annualized. But that was a lucky timing with low interest rates and rapid appreciation. In 2026, that's unlikely to repeat. The bottom line: home ownership is not a path to wealth, it's a consumption good. You should buy a house because you want a home, not because you think it's a great investment. The stock market has historically outperformed real estate. Over the last 100 years, U.S. homes have appreciated at about 3–4% annually, barely beating inflation. Stocks have returned 9–10%. The only reason homeownership looks good is because people use leverage, a mortgage, and they're forced to save by paying down principal. But you can get leverage in the stock market too. Margin, not recommended, or simply invest with discipline. Here's your actionable plan to decide whether to buy or rent. Step 1. Use the New York Times rent versus buy calculator. Input your local numbers. It accounts for everything: opportunity cost, maintenance, taxes, inflation. If the calculator says renting is cheaper over your expected time horizon, rent. If buying is cheaper, consider buying. Step 2. If you're leaning towards buying, make sure you have a 20% down payment plus 6 months of emergency fund. Do not drain your savings. Do not use your retirement accounts. Do not buy if you can't afford the monthly payment plus maintenance. Step 3. Shop for the lowest mortgage rate. Compare at least 3 lenders. Consider buying points if you plan to stay a long time, But with rates at 7%, points might not be worth it. Step 4. If you're renting, invest the difference. Automatically transfer the money you would have spent on a mortgage into a low-cost index fund like VTI. Treat it like a bill. Over time, you'll build wealth without the headaches of homeownership. Step 5. Don't let society pressure you. Owning a home is not a marker of adulthood. Financial independence is. And that comes from smart investing, not from owning a piece of real estate that owns you. Now, let me address the critics. Some will say, but rent goes up every year. A mortgage is fixed. True, but property taxes, insurance, and maintenance go up. And rent increases are generally capped by market forces. Over the long term, rent increases roughly with inflation, about 3% per year. A fixed mortgage payment is nice, but you're paying a huge premium for that stability in the early years. Also, many people forget that after 30 years you still owe property taxes forever. You never truly own a home, you just rent from the government. I'm not saying never buy. I'm saying don't buy blindly. Run the numbers, consider your lifestyle, and if you do buy a home you can afford, stay for at least 10 years and treat it as a place to live, not a retirement plan. Here's your challenge for today. Right after this video, calculate your price-to-rent ratio. Take the median home price in your area divided by the annual rent for a comparable home. If the ratio is above 20, renting is likely cheaper. If it's below 15, buying might be good. In between, it's a toss-up. Comment below with your ratio. I'll reply with my take. If this video changed how you think about homeownership, hit the like button. It helps others break free from the myth. Subscribe and turn on notifications. In the next video, I'm going to explain the infinite banking concept. Is whole life insurance a scam or a legitimate wealth tool? That one will be controversial. Your net worth doesn't care if you own a house. It cares about the numbers. Do the math, ignore the pressure, and build wealth on your own terms. I'll see you in the next video.